Tomorrow, voters in 7 states will be voting in the latest round of primaries, many of them deciding who will face off in the Senate, House, governor, and mayoral races. One big race to watch is for mayor of Los Angeles, where there are 12 candidates on the ballot. A recent LA Times and UC Berkeley poll shows a tight race between Democrats Karen Bass, the 6-term progressive member of Congress, and billionaire real estate developer Rick Caruso, who was a registered Republican until 3 years ago. In that poll, 38% said they support Bass, compared to 32% for Caruso. If no candidate gets 50% of the vote, there will be a runoff of the top 2 finishers in November. Caruso has spent a large portion of his personal fortune on this race, dropping roughly $40 million on television, radio, and digital campaign ads. According to recent surveys, the top issues are housing affordability, homelessness, and public safety. Congresswoman Karen Bass joins me now. And Congresswoman, thank you for being here. And, one of the things that has surprised me, just as I'm talking with folks about this race, is how close it is between yourself and Mr. Caruso. Why do you suppose that is? You are such a well-known person and figure in that community. Why do you suppose it's so close?
$40 million is the reason why. I mean, he literally has spent $40 million just to catch up to me. You would think that he would have overtaken me long ago. And the police union have spent $4 million on its attack campaign. I think it just goes to show you that the voters of Los Angeles are not willing to put City Hall up for sale.
Well, let me ask you this, because there are issues on the ground that do feel like they are helping to drive him somewhat, besides his celebrity endorsements. I mean, Snoop and all the celebrities that he sort of pulled on that people have been a little surprised by. A lot of famous people, including Clarence Avant, whose wife died so tragically in a shooting. But there are these issues of crime, issues of homelessness, that he seems to be using to his advantage. And you're seeing that in some of the polling with Black and Latino men, noting that, the Latino population is 48%, is the majority in the city of Los Angeles. Why do you suppose that is?
Well, I frankly think that it's one of the reasons why the race is of national significance, because, Joy, as you know, we've spent decades trying to fight for criminal justice reform, and we are having an increase in crime in a lot of cities. But you well know that crime is increasing in cities that have undertaken no reforms at all, or still operating off of mass incarceration and old law and order strategies. But it is absolutely being used because crime has now spread to areas that are relatively affluent, and they're not used to dealing with it on a day-to-day basis, but they are blaming reforms. And I think that it's important to acknowledge that crime has increased and to deal with that as progressives. And I know that he is basically running a very traditional Republican campaign, but he's doing it as a new Democrat. He filed to be a Democrat a couple of weeks before he filed for this race. And the issues that we have to make clear is that there's a lot more to being a Democrat. It's about a set of values. It's not just about what paperwork you fill out.
How do you then, prevent? I mean, the Eric Adams situation keeps being sort of brought up when people talk about the race that you're in right now, where it is perceived that there are, at least not a majority, but there's a substantial share of particularly Black men and Latino men who are drawn to these candidates who make more conservative cases about policing, even though, ironically, they would be the ones policed the hardest if these old versions of policing come back. How do you push back against that?
Well, I absolutely think that it is just straight up sexism when it comes to my campaign, because I do have a public safety plan that, has received criticism from the left, because I am recognizing that crime has increased and it's not time to decrease the police budget or anything like that. There really isn't much of an explanation, as I have read. I'm going to be very interested after the election is over and we can actually analyze the vote, because I know that the sampling of African Americans in that poll from yesterday is very, very small. So we will see if that actually does reflect a strong sentiment amongst African American men. I actually don't believe it does.
One of the things in California that is not in play as it is in places like, Georgia and Texas, is that you're not dealing with a voter suppressed voting situation. So in theory, you could have strong turnout because there aren't as many barriers. But will there be strong turnout in this race?
That is actually of great concern to me, Joy, because you are right. We are not dealing with voter suppression here. Although I do think that part of the strategy around the deluge of ads, especially the negative ads, was to really demoralize the voting population. But everyone in California that is registered to vote receives a ballot. And so there isn't much of an excuse. So people have been voting for a month, but the turnout is low. So that's why we have an active, vigorous ground campaign to drive up the turnout.
And one of the other issues that has, played a big part in this race is the issue of homelessness. It's a
Yes.
tragic issue that takes place all over the country, but is fairly acute in the city of Los Angeles. How are you addressing that? Because it is a concern, as you said, as it creeps closer to the affluent neighborhoods. It's something they don't want to see. And, people who are without homes don't necessarily want to be herded into shelters either.
Well, let me just tell you that it is a profound crisis here. This is just in the city. There's over 50,000 people living on the streets who have pitched tents in a lot of different places. And we do absolutely have to get people off the street right away. But my concern is that our city kind of has two choices to go. Are we going to go back to failed strategies, which is really just about herding people and incarcerating a percentage of folks, or are we going to build the type of housing that is needed and address the underlying problems? And so that is a very big issue. And we have to involve every single level of government. That's one of the things I bring to the table, especially with my federal, state, county, and city relationships.
This should be interesting. Are you ready for a runoff if it happens? Are you fundraised and prepared for a runoff?
Well, as of right now, neither one of us is going to get to 50+1.
Yeah.
And so I am absolutely prepared for a runoff. And you should know, in terms of the entertainment industry, we're all, that is Los Angeles. So I have very significant entertainment endorsements as well. John Legend, Samuel Jackson, Magic Johnson.
Yes, ma'am. Well, I'm going to have to go because I am now endorsing going to the next show. Congresswoman and LA Mayor candidate Karen Bass, thank you very much.